To many Americans in cities across the country, last summer was worse than a nightmare. The Black Lives Matter and Antifa movements covered at least 20 major cities, including Atlanta, St. Louis, Seattle, New York City, Minneapolis, Chicago, and many more, with their vandalism, violence, looting, arson, and other violations. A study by Princeton University released in September 2020 reveals nearly 570 violent demonstrations or riots spread to nearly 220 locations across the country. Americans are looking forward to the restoration of law and order. Unfortunately, such BLM and Antifa riots have been obviously protected and encouraged by modern American political correctness and often eulogized as the most peaceful and safe demonstrations by most media. One of the most heavily afflicted cities is Portland, Oregon. Reportedly, until August 2020, residents of Portland had endured 87 straight nights of protest on the streets, with 23 more arrested Sunday night and nearly 20 riots declared over the past 3 months. This year, in February and March, rioters propelled by the Antifa network repeatedly created chaos, smashing windows, vandalizing buildings, setting fires, harassing diners, and clashing with federal officers. The Office of the U.S. Attorney for the District of Oregon confirmed riots in February caused $2.3 million in damage to federal buildings. The good news is, when facing the danger of being attacked by rioters, you still have the right to self-defense. In many states, you're protected by the Stand Your Ground law. This law provides that people may use deadly force when they reasonably believe it to be necessary to defend against deadly force, great bodily harm, kidnapping, rape, or in some jurisdictions, robbery or other serious crimes. In some circumstances, the alternative to stand your ground is duty to retreat. You have the right to flee the riot to avoid danger. The following is the state-by-state map of jurisdictions on Stand Your Ground law and duty to retreat. Courthouse News reported that on March 10, 2021, the Oklahoma House of Representatives passed Bill 1674, which would grant legal immunity for motorists who strike violent rioters, who block roads and assault vehicles, behavior often associated with thuggish BLM and Antifa mobs. The bill also raises the punishment for individuals involved in looting and rioting. The House bill was approved by an overwhelming margin of 79 to 18. According to the bill, a driver who unintentionally causes injury or death to someone won't be criminally or civilly liable if it occurred while the driver was fleeing a riot that he or she felt necessary to escape for fear of serious injury or death, and the motor vehicle operator exercised due care at the time of the death or injury. The bill's co-author, State Representative Kevin West, cited an incident that happened over the summer during which an Oklahoma couple was surrounded by protesters in the street. Last summer, we saw a number of very violent riots both here in Oklahoma and nationwide, West said. We had scenarios where motorists were simply trying to extricate themselves or their families or passengers from those very volatile and dangerous situations, and yet were barred from doing so and later chastised for trying to harm people blocking their escape routes. This measure would clarify that such actions by motorists would be legal and allowed, and it will clarify punishments for rioters acting illegally to impede traffic or seeking harm.
That doesn't mean that people can just expect to get off without anything. I mean, it's just like if you use a firearm in self-defense, there's still going to be an investigation, and then it will be determined if it was justified.
West said the bill also adds that every person who unlawfully obstructs or makes impassable or hazardous the normal use of any public street, highway, or road within Oklahoma by impeding, hindering, or restraining motor vehicle traffic or passengers, by endangering the safe movement of motor vehicles or pedestrians shall, upon conviction, be guilty of a misdemeanor punishable by imprisonment in the county jail for a term not exceeding 1 year, or by a fine of not less than $100 and not exceeding $5,000, or by both such fine and imprisonment. The bill states that the person shall be liable for all damages to person or property. In addition, any organization found to have conspired with persons found guilty of committing crimes under rioting statutes shall be fined 10 times the amount authorized by the appropriate provision. Punishments for rioters and looters are also increased in the legislation. If any murder, maiming, robbery, rape, or arson was committed in the course of such a riot, such person is punishable in the same manner as a principal in such crime, HB 1674 states. Such a person shall, upon conviction, be guilty of a felony punishable by imprisonment. National File reported that the Oklahoma bill has already generated intense outrage and public outcry from left-wing activists who believe the ability to obstruct traffic and assault passersby is crucial to their political expression.
There's been a lot of talk about that this is an effort to cut down on protests, and it's absolutely not. It is 100% about public safety.
In Tennessee, similar legislation is also being proposed, making obstructing a highway a felony and granting immunity to drivers who, while exercising due care, unintentionally injure or kill someone blocking a highway. According to a WJHL-TV report on March 3rd, the HB 513 bill, recommended by the House Criminal Justice Committee, would upgrade the offense of obstructing a highway or street from a Class B or C misdemeanor to a Class E felony, which is punishable by up to 6 years in prison. It would also apply to obstructing a railway, waterway, hallway, or any other place used for the passage of persons, vehicles, or conveyances. In an interview with Cable News, State Representative Ron M. Gant said, "This legislation promotes law and order and protects Tennessee communities against violence by safeguarding public roadways and increasing penalties for those who commit these reprehensible acts against innocent people. These senseless acts have no place in a civil society." Earlier in November 2020, Ron DeSantis, the Republican governor of Florida, drafted a bill to push expansion of Stand Your Ground law as part of an anti-mob crackdown. The legislation will empower citizens to defend themselves and defend businesses with deadly force against roving mobs who commit mass looting and rioting, as is the style of violent left-wing political groups like Black Lives Matter and Antifa.
Legislative proposal, which we're calling the Combating Violence, Disorder, and Looting and Law Enforcement Protection Act, that will probably be the boldest and most comprehensive piece of legislation to address these issues anywhere in the country. And there's a number of things that we'll be doing. We are going to impose criminal penalties for violent or disorderly assemblies, and that'll be a third-degree felony. We will also require a felony if you incapacitate any of the roadways. We see people take over interstates. That is absolutely hazardous. It's not fair to motorists who may get caught up in that, and so that will be unacceptable. Also, we have a prohibition on destroying or toppling any type of public property, including monuments. That's not the way to go about it, and we will hold you accountable. Also have a prohibition on harassing innocent people in public accommodations. You see these videos of these innocent people eating dinner, and you have these crazed lunatics just screaming at them and intimidating them on a public accommodation. You're not going to do that here in the state of Florida.